Hello, Year 3, it's Mr. Howell here with some geography. This half term we're going to be looking at our geography unit of where has my food come from. First thing we're going to do before we look at the lesson that we're going to be covering today, we're going to look at some key vocabulary. Now, there may be some vocabulary that comes up in our conversations, in our discussions, that we'll cover as we need to. But these are some of the key vocabulary that we're going to be referring to throughout the next 5 weeks. So we've got land use, we've got the purpose of what land is used for, what its sole function is. We've got the term farm. We'll be looking around what that means and are there different types of farms, for example. Trade, we'll be looking at how trade enables us as a country to sell products to other countries and also to buy other products from other countries and have agreements in place so that that's fair. Resources, what resources as a country do we have available to us, and also what resources are we able to form part of our trade for other countries for us to share them, and also thinking about what resources maybe we don't have and reasons why we have to look at other countries' resources that they have to be able to import, to be able to get that food from there. Transport is quite an important one when we're talking about food. A lot of food doesn't necessarily grow on our doorsteps and therefore it needs to be moved around. The UK, here we're talking about the United Kingdom. We're talking about the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom, and we're going to look about the importance that plays later on in the weeks. Import, I've already said a little bit about what that means. So import means things that we are bringing into the country, things that are delivered by other countries to us. Dairy, we've already looked at this, haven't we, in our science lesson? So we're talking about food that has some kind of milk product in it. Cereal, here we're going to be looking at the different types of cereal grains that you might be able to buy and thinking about the foods that those cereal might be in. Livestock, what kind of animals do we eat? What kind of food do they produce? Where would that originate from? Export, we're talking about the food that we are able to grow in this country that we are then able to sell or to trade with other countries. And producer, now we have looked at this again in science, thinking about our food chains, about a producer being a plant or being a tree that is able to produce its own energy. Now a producer could mean that, it could mean something that is able to produce its own energy, but here we're thinking about a producer that might be able to grow food, for example. So those are some of the key vocabulary that we're going to be looking at throughout the whole unit of work over the next 5 weeks. So we're not going to cover all of these in this one lesson today. Now, I apologise for the slightly long-winded learning objectives, and the reason for that is purely the fact that we've got a little bit of a shorter half term in this spring half term means that we've just had to merge a couple of lessons together, and that's why they're a little bit long-winded, but don't panic, there's not hundreds and hundreds of pages of work to do. So the first learning objective is to list where food comes from and to identify the country of origin from different foods. That's going to be for the red group. The green group, you're going to describe where food comes from and you're going to locate the country of origin and calculate the food miles for different food types. And purples, today you're going to explain the differences between where food comes from and to locate the country of origins of different foods on a map, but you're going to consider how it is transported to our plates. Now, that might sound like a lot and it might sound like those learning objectives are quite long-winded, but hopefully the tasks that you'll have will be linked to the lesson, and if you spend the time going through the lesson with me today, you should then be able to answer those questions quite easily. The first activity that I want you to do then for this lesson is to answer this question. Where is the origin of the food you can see? Now, first of all, we need to consider that word in bold, the word origin. So I want you to pause the video and see if you can think about what that word means. If you said where something comes from or where it first started, you'd be absolutely right. So with the word origin, we're looking about the beginning, the starting point. When we look at these food plates, when you look at the different items that are on it, yes, they may have been bought in a supermarket, but that's not their origin. That's not where that food originally came from. And even in the word originally, it uses that root word of origin to say a starting point. So where did those food originally come from? So we're going to have a look at the individual food items in each plate, and then I want you to see if you can work out where the origin of those foods were. So if we have a look at this first picture, we've got fish fingers, we've got beans, and we've got chips. So I want you to think about maybe linking this a little bit back to our science when we looked at food and healthy plates last term. And I want you to see if you can think about if that's going to help you to answer these questions. In the next plate, we've got pasta, tomato sauce and cheese. And on the right hand side, we've got chicken, carrots, green beans and potatoes. So we've got reasonably a wide range of different items. Now, when we come to looking at where they're going to be originally from, their origins, we might find that they're perhaps quite similar. But I want you now to pause the video and I want you to see if you can write down those food types. And I want you to see if you can tell me where you think they're from. Make a prediction for me. I wonder what you've come up with then. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at my table that I've produced that explains where I think these foods have originated from and where their origins are. And I want you to see whether or not you agree with me. On the left here then you can see those different ingredients, and I wonder what answers you came up with for this activity. We're going to have a look now at the answers that I came up with, have a little bit of a conversation about them, and then we're going to move on to the next task. So here you can see that we've got three main origins of food. We've got a farm, we've got river or sea, and then we've got a factory. And we're going to look in these three columns as to where I could put these different items. So in the farm column, I've got beans, I've got chips, I've got chicken, carrots, green beans and potatoes. Now, I'm quite happy with all of those answers, except this one here, chips. Why might I not be happy with that one being in farm? Exactly, chips are potatoes, aren't they? Their original product is potatoes. So where is it that chips are likely to be made? Possibly in a factory, but I've included it in the farm because if we're thinking from the origin of what chips are, they are potatoes, therefore I've put it in the farm. But just to be clear, farms do not grow chips, they grow potatoes. If we have a look at our next one, we've got river or sea, we've got fish, and I've put fingers in brackets because fish don't tend to have breadcrumbs around them in the sea. That tends to be added at a factory, which is why I've put factory for that one as well. But if we're thinking just in the purest sense of its origin, the main ingredient in fish fingers is obviously the fish. Where's the fish going to originally come from? It's going to be the sea or the river, depending on what kind of fish it is. And so that's the reason that I've put that in river and sea. The last one here is factory. These are going to be things that are made in a factory. So we're going to have a look at this very quickly. We've got tomato sauce, we've got cheese, fish fingers, beans, pasta, and chicken. Now you might see some similarities or some crossovers here. For example, the beans, pasta, and chicken. Sorry, not the pasta. The beans and the chicken are actually in the farm column. If you're thinking of beans, if you think of baked beans, for example, which is what we saw in the picture a minute ago, we could see that that had a tomato sauce on. And I'm sure, like me, if you went to the cupboard and found a tin of baked beans on a farm, they don't grow tin of baked beans, just like they don't grow chips. They would grow the beans, it would go to a factory, and then it would be put into a tin and tomato sauce would be added within the factory. So that's the reason that I've put the beans there. The pasta, which I said accidentally earlier on, that is going to be in a factory because it's going to be produced in a certain way with different ingredients mixed together and produced on a large scale and then packaged in a factory because it has different ingredients. Those individual ingredients might have come from farms, but as a product with those different ingredients, it's going to be made in a factory. And chicken. Chicken does come from farms. Factories don't grow chickens, but the reason that I've put that in there is just thinking about if you had a particular flavored sauce on a chicken, or if it was sold in a bag with different parts. We're thinking about the different flavors and the different additives and things that might be in there. Then actually it could be that was made or cut, or certain parts of the chicken were removed and taken away in the factory. So that's the reason I've put there. But if we're thinking about the truer origins of a chicken, it is definitely on a farm. There aren't any chickens that grow in factories that produce food. I want you to just have a quick think about what other food you might be able to think of that might grow in one of those three places, either a farm, the river or sea, or a factory. So thinking about other food that might have its origin that you might be able to find in your house. And what about the different ingredients that are listed as well? Where did they originate? Can you find any particular ingredients that you might be able to recognize as being from one of those three places as well? So just spend a minute or two trying to find something in your cupboard, just to have a quick look and see if there's any other food that you think might have originated in one of those places. Once you've done that, don't put the food away just yet, because you might need that later on for some fieldwork investigations. We're going to have a look now at how far our food has come. Now, food grows in lots of different countries all across the world. As you can see here, we've got a map of the world with all the countries on, and there's going to be different food that is grown right across the world. And what we're going to think about now is what kind of food you or I might have in our cupboards, in our fridges, in our freezers perhaps, that is going to give us a little bit of a clue as to where our food has come from that we eat here in the UK. We're going to have a look now at some ingredients, and don't worry, this isn't going to be an attempt to recreate Ready Steady Cook. We just want to know where these have come from. Now, I have raided my cupboards and I've raided my fridge, and I've managed to find these items. First one is some eggs. Where have they come from? Have a look at the packet, see if there's any information that gives you a clue. Any part of the label that tells you. That's right, it's the United Kingdom. Now there's a couple of clues. Firstly, you've got the United Kingdom flag on, and then also in here it says about the fact that they are from hens that are free range, and it mentions the word Britain or British. So if we move on to our next item, we have got this one here. Now, let me get rid of that. Can you see where these are from? Where do they originate from? And hopefully you can see the information just down here that they are from Spain. So Spain is a country in Europe, and in the grand scheme of things isn't that far away from us as to where we are now, but obviously it's still a different country. So we can plot that onto a map in a moment. Let's have a look at the next one. And you can see here that we have got some blueberries. Where are they from? And again, hopefully in the middle of this here, you can see that they are a product of Chile. Now, Chile is a country in South America. So again, we should be able to find that on our map shortly and plot that onto there. Let's get rid of that drawing. Let's have a look at our next one. Here we've got some mushrooms. Can we see where they are from? Where do they originate from? Hopefully again you've managed to find here that they are the product of, and it says CO, which stands for county, down, and then UK. So this is actually somewhere in Northern Ireland, which is obviously part of the United Kingdom. It's one of those 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom, and therefore these are produced or a product of the United Kingdom. Last one then. Sorry, it's not the last one. I've got 2 more. How exciting. Let's have a look at this one. And I'm hoping that you can see the sticker here, but it is quite small, which I do apologize for. I will try and make that bigger. And it says Brazil. So these are from Brazil. Now again, this is a country in South America on the eastern northeast side of South America. Chile, sorry, I should have said earlier, for the blueberries, Chile is on the west coast of South America. So again, we're going to be able to plot that onto our map shortly. And then definitely the last one this time are these poor 3 apples that are left in the packet after my children have eaten them. And I wonder if you can see where these are from. Have a look at the label, and hopefully you should just be able to make out the country there, which is Italy. So Italy is a country in Europe, so we're going to be able to plot that onto a map as well. So let's have a look at where these products are from. Let's have a look at plotting these locations onto a map then. So can you remember which food was grown in the United Kingdom? There were 2 of them. That's right, it was the mushrooms and it was the eggs. Our next country is, can you guess? It's next to Portugal, south of France. Did you see what it was before the red circle came up? It's Spain. Which of our foods was grown in Spain? It was the strawberries that were grown in Spain. Our next one is Italy, and this was where our apples were from. Excellent, which leaves us with 2 countries. Now, can you remember where they were, which continent I said they were in? That's right, I said South America. So South America is this continent down here. And can you remember the two countries that they were? That's right, it was Chile and Brazil. Now Brazil, we can see maybe a little bit clearer than Chile, but we're going to go to Chile first. So I wonder if you can point your finger at Chile and see how close to the red circle you are when I reveal Chile. Did you get close to it? Well done if you did. So Chile is that country that runs all along the west spine of South America there, and you can see that this is the country where the blueberries were from. And then Brazil, one of the largest countries in South America, is going to be where our last product was from. Can you remember what our last product was? That's right, it is bananas. Fantastic. So there we can see on a map of the world just 6 items and where they are from in the world. So we're going to have a look at a little bit more about where our food comes from across the world in the lessons throughout this unit of work. But I just wanted to do that just as a quick fun activity for today, and you're going to have an opportunity to do some field work of your own using this as a guide in your tasks. On to explaining your tasks then for this week. So your tasks are going to be in 2 separate parts. The first set of tasks is going to link to what we were discussing at the beginning of the lesson, looking around the origins of food in terms of where they come from originally. Then we're going to look at the fieldwork task where you're going to go and find some items of food in your house, and you're going to see if you can locate the country, and there's going to be some activities related to that as well. So the red group, I want you to list where food comes from. I want you to be able to try and recall the places where food originates. For green group, you're going to describe where the food comes from. So I want a little bit of a sentence for each of those different origins of food that we looked at, and give me some examples of the food that might come from each of those locations. And for purples, I want you to explain the differences between those food origins, the origins of food that we looked at. And I want you to see why there might be those differences. So just explain a little bit about the reasons why those origins might be different and why they couldn't originate from another place as well. If you need to go back and watch that first part of the video up until we started looking at the maps, then that's absolutely fine. You can go back and watch that again to see if that helps you. And you've got a table in your sheet on Teams that will help you to record your information clearly. So that's the first section of your task. If we move on to our second section of your tasks, this is going to be a little bit of a fieldwork opportunity for you. Now obviously at the minute we're limited with the fieldwork that we can carry out because of all the restrictions. So unfortunately we can't go to a supermarket and have a look at the different products and have a look at the different countries and where they're from and do some activities around that. So what I want you to do instead is to find just 5 different items in your house that's got an origin on it, that's got a country that you can identify. So that you're able to plot them onto a map. So for reds, I want you to identify the country of origin for different foods. You've got a map on your sheet. It's at the bottom of your task. If you keep scrolling all the way to the bottom for everyone, for all the different groups, you've got one map, and you're going to put a mark on the map, and you're going to tell me what item you found that is grown on there. So I want the name of the product. If you want to take a picture of it and include your picture with an arrow to the location that it is grown in, where it originates from, there may be some Head Teachers Awards on offer for you. So you're going to do that. The greens, I want you to do that the same as the red task. I want you to find 5 items, map them on the map, but I also want you to calculate the distance, the food miles that they have travelled. Now we're going to look a little bit more at food miles in next week's lesson. And the week after as well, but I want you to have a look and see if you can use maybe Google Maps or another mapping facility online to see if you can do a calculation to work out how many miles that food travels to get to the United Kingdom. And again, there's a table in your section with that information on. And the purples, you're going to locate the country of origins of those 5 different foods on a map. And I want you to consider how it's transported from that country onto our plates. Think about the processes that might be involved in that. And I want you to also give me a reason why. Why do you think it's that particular type of transport? Now, we are going to be looking about farm to fork and looking at some different activities in the next couple of weeks or so, but I want you to just have a quick think about that. And if you want to work out the food miles as well, like the green group, that's absolutely fine. You can do that task as well. And as always, year 3, if you want to challenge yourself, if you want to complete a different task, if you're in red group and you really fancy working out of interest, or you want to challenge yourself to work out how many food miles certain foods have travelled, please have a go at the green task as well. That's absolutely fine. And if you're struggling a little bit and you're finding it a little bit difficult, then you can do your best and try to complete the task that you can. If you're really struggling, then you can complete the task that's for a slightly different group. So for example, if you're in green group and you were really finding it a little bit tricky and you wanted to do the red task to start you off, that's fine, and then see if you can move on to the green task after you've done that. But try your best and see what you can do. And that ends this video. I'm sorry it's been a little bit of a long one, but I hope you've enjoyed it. And remember, if you can't submit any work on Teams for any reason, or you've got any questions that you're not quite sure of, you can ask your grown-ups to email me at year3@ssjs.co.uk, and you can also submit any work on there that you can't do on Teams as well. I hope you enjoy this activity, year 3. Good luck with your tasks and happy hunting for lots of different and interesting food in your fridge.